Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Did I just say that? I'm so used to saying that. So this is not this week. This is, I believe, the fifth day of our Vlogmas series. And welcome. Today we'll be talking about the global market, what investments worked and what did not. Now, if you have not been keeping tabs with us and you just stumbled upon this video, we are doing a 12-day series covering different aspects of your personal finances as we slide into the holiday season, or we already started the holiday seasons, and then also in preparation for the new year. Because as much as we know that yes, the holidays will come, we enjoy ourselves, but then there's like 11 months of real life and living that we need to consider, right? So stick around. Today we're talking about the global markets, what worked, what didn't work, and what you should be doing in 2026. And this is not from an economic perspective. I'm going to be talking about it from different asset classes. If you missed it, series of two videos ago, you can check out the playlist. We talked about the Nigerian version of this. So what investment assets worked and what didn't, right? And then so we're going to be reviewing those same assets and then now looking at it from a global perspective, different countries and all that. So if you've been someone who has been looking for where to invest and you don't know where to invest, and you are an African in diaspora and you're wondering where should I be putting my money, and you want to know what happened this year because you haven't been in touch, then this is the video for you. You would not regret. If you are joining us, I just want you to say hi and where you are reaching out from. I'll be sure to spotlight you. Now, going into it, what assets worked? In Nigeria, we talked about the stock market. Yes, in the US. So, okay, before I even go into, let me just explain why I will start with the US market. Because number one, I have an investment community. It's called the Money Weight Club, and we will pop out our link for you to check us out. But what we do is what it is that we have members in Saudi Arabia, we have members in Canada, the UK, and I think Finland. We have members in the Netherlands, countries around the world, right? But what I have found in trying to keep tabs on those countries, what we find is that even the analysts in those countries are recommending the US markets. Why? Because the US is the most accessible global market that we have. Other option in terms of what markets to would have been China. How China is when it comes to just slamming Alibaba and things like that, and government control and stuff, right? So when people are looking for what markets to tap into the world, people tend to the United States. So you would local UK analysts recommending US stocks. You would find local Canadian analysts recommending US stocks. They would recommend like 7 US stocks before the next one. The eighth one would be a Canadian stock. That's really how we are reviewing the stock market at the United States. Now, if you've been tracking United US the S&P index, so if you don't know what that is, it's like um, the tracking of the top 100 countries in the New York Stock Exchange, right? That's really what the S&P is. Now, if you look at all those indices, right, you realize that the markets have grown. In this year, people have made money from the stock market. One of the major drivers has been AI. Tech stocks have gone off the roof, right? So that's the first thing. If you, and then I mean in the club, we give stock recommendations, right? We analyze, we discuss, we make changes as we go along the way. So you might want to check us out if you are really like on a I need to take action type P. But if you are still struggling with your personal finances, go and watch our day one video. The link is in the description. Go and watch our day one video, and it's just give like a subtle short guide on how to, what's the word, plan your finances for the new year. So review 2025 because you need to know where you are, and then switch over to 2026. But that being said, if you are in that, let me start taking action. The stock market is somewhere you need to go. And if you are earning a global currency, it is something you should be considering, right? So that's the first. Now, US stock market did quite well this year. If your stock selections were in the tech segment, anything to buy, the consumer staples did well. The banking stocks also did well, right? Um, but then the market is fast that stock selection is key. Stock selection is key, but generally, stock market has done well. And I dare say that if you have been in the US stock market and you've just been following the top guys in the past 3, 4, 5 years, you would have done like times 3, times 4, or whatever money you put in, right? So as much as there's so much noise, so much up and down, you need to actually look at the stock market. It is actually growing. And that's what happened this year also. It was true to form. Oh, hi, Moyo. I see you. Hi, I'm at my laptop because it's right in front of me. And so I can see when people are speaking or saying, I read that. So let's talk about market, right? The next thing that is gold. Hey, guy, gold. If you just understand one simple thing, when there is uncertainty, everybody flies to gold. So if you want to build a long-term portfolio, understanding that uncertainty is almost a constant, then you should have gold in your portfolio. FYI, if your version of having gold in your portfolio is just buying jewelry, it is fine as long as you are actually valuing the jewelry properly. We had a session in the community where someone who is a gold expert came in to explain different ways you could invest in gold. But one of the things that she said was that when you are investing in gold as per jewelry, what happens is that if whatever the jewelry is and you buy it, they would weigh it and weigh everything as gold, right? However, when you want to sell, which is the main point, when you want to sell, they'll take out every embellishment, anything that was added to it, and just weigh the raw gold itself, such that you may find that you have overpaid for the gold value just because you bought embellishments. So when you're thinking of gold, and you also want to think long term, also think in terms of the actual gold and making sure that you are actually buying at a good level. The easiest other thing is to separate your gold jewelry that is for joy and happiness from your gold coins, gold ounces, and all those things. There are ways to do that, especially if you're an African in diaspora. There are ways for you to invest in gold. Literally, you can buy gold at Walmart, right? They have the gold coins. There are registered, licensed gold that you can go to. But guess what? Gold did well in 2025. And because President Trump is still in power and he's always coming up with new ideas. The latest idea is that taxes are going to be abolished, right? We know that he might try and then there'll be some uncertainty and then we'll settle somewhere. But if you understand that these uncertainties will keep coming, then gold is something you should have. You. So that's that. That's for gold. The next thing we want to talk about is the fixed income market, right? So bonds. What happened to the bonds market? Now, bonds is directly tied to inflation and rate cuts. So if you know that there were rate cuts this year, like we should all know. If you don't know, you should be watching my channel regularly. So you want to understand what these things mean and how they mean, because they do impact your pocket if you don't know. So there were rate cuts. There were rate cuts in Europe. There were rate cuts. Everybody's cutting rates, right? Even Nigeria has joined the bandwagon rates because numbers appear to be improving. Now, with those rate cuts came a slight dip in bond yields. What does that mean? If a bond was at a discount of 4, is now at a discount of 3. Now, I'm being very simplistic because I know that my audience are people. So I could go technical and tell you the yield, capital gains, the market movements, duration, blah, blah, blah. But no, the bulk of my listeners are people trying to understand. So I'm being very, very simplistic in my communication so that you can tie it to reality. So I'm using discounts because if for example, something is on sale and it's at a 10% discount and the initial price was $100, it means you pay 90. But then they now say the discount has been reduced to 5%. Anybody that is coming to buy will pay 95. So generally across markets, you'll find that bond yields came down, albeit slightly in some markets, right? Global markets, Europe, blah, blah, blah. And it's because as they cut the rates, there was a reduction in that discount. I'm trying to use a scenario that we can all relate with so that the price became higher. So you would have gained on the capital that you put into it, aka capital gains, right? So, but then I dare say that historically, bond yields haven't necessarily been fantastic in the developed north. So, if you're an African in diaspora, one thing that you would have made money from if you had gone into would have been euro bonds. Euro bonds, for example, bonds went as high as 10 to 11. Euro bonds, if you don't know, drop in the chats, let me know what content I need to create because I can't even go into that. But Euro bonds are denominated bonds from um, countries. So, for example, US not issue. So, let me use a scenario: Nigeria issuing a dollar denominated bond in London. It's a Eurobond. That's what it's called. So it's dollar denominated, and emerging markets issue Eurobonds every now and then. Right now, Eurobond yields have come down, such that you have people that bought bonds at 87, 88, 89, and those bonds are about 94, 95 right now in terms of price. So they've gained on capital, that they've made some capital gains, and they've also collected their interest, which is called coupon. So I'm talking about the things that worked. Definitely, it did work, right? It actually did work. Now let's talk about real estate. Real estate has really been fragmented, right? Um, I cannot speak for the US market in the entirety. So there are the numbers of new houses being released, demand for houses, interest rates are lower, so there should be higher demand. But in also in the UK also there is a shift in terms of we're having people leaving because of tax reasons and moving to Dubai. We're having it's less attractive to migrants, students, so there's that shift in the balance of demand for real estate in the UK. Now, Canada also has its own job loss issues. Some people are also saying that there's some delay in getting approvals for building projects. There's a lot of that. So there's housing scarcity. And then there's also this one where they're saying that, okay, foreigners will not be able to buy property. So what is happening, for example, in Canada is that prices in some areas are actually skyrocketing, but in some areas are also flat, right? So it's been fragmented. What that means is the location is highly important. So play out in 2025. Where you decide to plug your money is actually important. Now, fun fact, like had a good valuation, a good real estate story in 2025, and it was simply because of some things that happened elsewhere. For example, the US government saying that the United Nations, reducing their funding to the United Nations, there was a flow. So the United Nations moved a lot of their staff to Nairobi from, I think, New York and Geneva, right? What's the impact of that on real estate was that there was like an influx of demand, right? For property, for housing, things like that. So we saw that the valuation of property, the values of property, even of land just went to, what am I saying? Some things like the news, even state story in this year, right? Where there used to be a cap on rent, and it took a cap this year. It expired, I think this was the 50th year, and it expired. Guys, I think that there are opportunities in each of these places, right? Such that apart from only that you live in, which there is this debate whether it really is an asset or a liability, considering property tax. When you want to go into real estate, there are a myriad of opportunities. There is a lot. There's a lot, and these are the things that we're going to be talking about in the club next year. Real estate is always a thing. It's just for you to find where to plug in, because even in terms of two houses on the same street, different stories when it comes to real estate. So let's also be mindful of. So that was real estate. I don't know what's happened. But I'm back. I see that my internet is very, very the different ones. Please bear with me. I might have to record this again. So oh hi Laime. I see you guys. I'm really sorry about that. My internet is extremely choppy and I can see that. So we talked about stock market, the global stock market, we talked about real estate, talked about gold, right? And we talked about bonds. Now, venture capital. Of course, you know that America is the grandfather or the big brother. It's more like big brother of venture capital. And as you know, right, you have the companies that was shut down and say this lady that after so much raising, blah, 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 she was so much in the news, let's not over whatever that. And they'll always be that. Like, always look out for those. It would always happen. Honestly, when it comes to venture capital, you don't ever do just one venture capital investment. You have to spread it out. Why? Because you literally do not know the one that is going to blow. No matter how good it looks, until you actually maybe I should discuss that. I think there was a good flow of funding this year. There was an improvement from I'm frozen. There was a good flow of funding. I'm not sure what's happening. My internet is doing magic. I'm really sorry. I have no control, but I probably will have to record this again. But basically, what was I talking about? Venture capital. So one of the things that I need to understand about venture capital is that it never actually, like, you can't guarantee one. So the mindset when it comes to venture capital is that's all your eggs in one basket. But in terms of flow, right, there was an from, and one of the things I need to understand that drove that improved fact that a lot um, rates came down slightly. The rate cut, there was access to cheap and access to cheaper, and people can invest in private equity or in venture capital. So we saw that happen this year, and it was just true to form. But even that, there's a lot of venture capital, right, with massive value, not that much to show, right? When you think about the ChatGPT guys and OpenAI and the raises that they did this and the kind of contracts that they signed and things like Oracle shares spiking just because they signed a contract, but now Oracle shares are not doing very, very well. There's a lot of that. I dare say that it's going to happen again like that in 2026. And that's because AI is still in its infancy. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth. We are still in that place where it's evolving to a point where it becomes a part of us. And in that journey to becoming a part of us, we will have the ups and the downs. And I do not think 2020 is the year when AI stops being the new bride in town. Therefore, those will come, right? But then I'll say that if you see an opportunity, AI tool that I like their positioning, nothing peculiar, but just like that, clear that they're focused, like they're very, very clear on that and they're focused on it, right? And that's on venture capital. That was one thing. So I would say that if you are thinking about the future, you should have investments in one way, shape, or form, right? And then finally, what asset class do we have? I think the final thing I will talk about is creatives, right? What we found was was that the creatives industry, talk about creatives because that's some space that I'm in. Someone is knocking at my door. Should I get up and answer the person? Hold on a second, please. Yeah, this is the real version of a live session. So I'm in a hotel and somebody came knock at my door. The person has disappeared. Okay, and the person comes back into the door. Hold on. Okay, so creatives. I think the creative industry. I'll speak to creative industry from an African perspective. I'll speak to it from two different segments. We have the music and we have the movie. Now we know that Nigeria is trying to integrate into the global movie space. If you don't know right now because there's been like this hustle tussle about that. But from an integration perspective, I think that Africa is still in the let's see how it works stage, right? We've, as much as some people have done well locally and even done well even on YouTube, right? The numbers are still not fantastic, right? So from an investment perspective, the only thing I would say is follow who know road because there are some people that have broken into the global scene and then they are getting good money. But do they need your money? I don't know. Do you have the relationship to get there? I don't know. And we've done stuff in the club in previous times and all that. And we still have some that are in the works. But as an African in diaspora, I would say that creative is something that you should consider. But I would say one thing, look at the exit plan and look at the numbers of people that have done the same thing in the same exit path, right? And see if these people qualify, like this project, does it qualify to meet this criteria to get into this whatever, and what kind of money can they make? Why? Because it's tough. It's really tough. Even globally, the cinemas, the stage plays, all those things, they are all struggling. And the countries where, well, I think America is doing well compared to the global market, but the countries where they seem to be doing a little well is where there's some kind of government grant or the other. So look out for that where you are. But on the music, yo, Africa is entering everywhere without boundaries. Global. But I dare say that most of these guys, because I mean, I had an opportunity to invest in one of the music labels, right, that have been taking people. But then at that time, I was like, man, music is like you can hustle and hit it or you may not. But I do think that in the next couple of years, Africa is going to package their creative industry and sell it to the world. Now, why am I talking about this from an investment in the global space mindset? Because there are lots of Africans in diaspora that will probably watch this video and may not be thinking about the creative space and may have that relationship where they are positioning for a global audience, right? Look at it. Don't walk away from it. We literally have people doing poetry and making money from it, right, on a global scale. So there's still a lot of that because Africa is fresh, Africa is new, Africa is different, something new, exciting. Yes, there's a lot of that. So I would recommend that any day. But anyways, what asset class have I not talked about? I think I've talked on the major ones. Agriculture, there's always demand for food. And in this green energy space, anybody that is doing anything to optimize their use of energy makes a lot of money. The energy space, the oil markets, it will always make money with that. Before we move from fossil fuel, it will be a while. I hope this was useful. Don't forget that you can't outsource your health and your finances as we're sliding into the holiday season, or we're already in the holiday season. The essence of these videos, and we're on day 5, is for you to begin to plan for the new year. So with each of these asset classes, especially if you're an African in diaspora looking for where and how to invest, pick each of these and check them out. And ask questions in the comments, like we're always happy to answer. We'll either respond if it is so quick, or we would create a video and drop the link for you to see it so you get your answer. And if it so pleases you, check out the Money Week Club. Join our waitlist. We are not necessarily open right now. We are not open right now. We open intermittently to take on new members. So join the waitlist and see you in the next video.